The year was 1208, when the winds of the eastern steppes carried dust, blood, and the name that could silence armies. Changes Khan. His empire stretched like a beast across half the world. His warriors wore iron helmets that reflected no light. And deep inside his capital fortress stood a prison unlike any other. A towering wooden keep that locals whispered about during cold nights. The prison of stolen hearts. It was said that the spirits of the tortured lived within its walls, clawing forever from the inside, waiting to drag new souls into their misery. Changes Khan kept only one kind of captive there. Those who betrayed him not by sword, but by desire. And among those prisoners, one name would soon be carved into history like a wound. Ares. A soldier. A prisoner. A doomed lover. Ares had been a warrior of the steppes, strong, disciplined, silent. He fought for Changes Khan with unbroken loyalty until the night he saw her. Aileen. Changes Khan's chosen woman. A woman whose beauty was said to stop even the harsh winter wind. Ares saw her first during a royal festival. She walked slowly beside the Khan, a veil of silver threads covering her face, but even the veil could not dim the glow of her eyes. Eyes like dark water, deep and full of secrets. One glance. Just one. And Ares's fate was sealed. That night under the moon, Aileen found him near the palace well, alone, wounded from battle, blood on his arm. She approached him with gentle steps and whispered, "If you die without being loved, your spirit will wander forever." It was a single sentence, yet it bound both their lives. From then on, stolen moments became their only shelter. Whispers behind torchlit walls, secret touches beneath the shadows of yurts, hearts burning in silence. Never crossing the lines of honor, but close enough to set both worlds on fire. They thought Changes Khan would never know, but the Khan always knew. He had eyes in every tent, ears in every whisper, spies in every shadow. The Khan placed his most loyal shadow behind them. Otgar, a silent assassin, a watcher whose face no one remembered. He followed them in darkness, climbed trees to see them talk in the forest, listened through thin walls, memorizing every tremble of their voice, every stolen smile, every lingering glance. Otgar reported everything, but Changes Khan did not react. Instead, he smiled slowly, a smile that chilled Otgar's blood. "Let love grow," Khan said. "The heart must ripen before you crush it." And Otgar knew. A punishment was coming. One that would not merely kill. One that would unmake. Ares and Aileen met for the last time near the frozen river. The night was quiet, the stars sharp as blades. Aileen took Ares's hands in hers, trembling. "Ares, we must run," she whispered. "The Khan knows." Before Ares could answer, 100 torches flared behind them. Otgar stepped forward. "By the order of Changes Khan, the traitor will be taken." Ares fought like a cornered wolf. 5 warriors fell. A 6th screamed as Ares broke his jaw. But numbers overcame him. Ares was shackled, dragged, thrown into the dark pit beneath the fortress, the prison of stolen hearts. Aileen was taken separately, to be judged by the Khan's own hand. The prison was a wooden tower, but inside it felt alive. The walls moaned. The floors creaked as if breathing. The air stank of old blood, damp bones, and something worse. Regret. The warden, an old blind woman named Karma, greeted him with cold laughter. "You enter as flesh," she rasped. "But you may leave as something, hungrier." The prisoners around him whispered through cracks in the dark. "Do not sleep. He comes at night. The spirits, they crawl on the ceiling. You will hear your own heart screaming." Ares ignored them. He only thought of Aileen. And that thought alone kept him sane for a while. While Ares rotted in darkness, the Khan confronted Aileen inside his high council tent. He circled her slowly, like a tiger studying prey. "You chose a prisoner over a Khan." You chose a whispered smile over empires. You chose a man who bleeds over a ruler who does not. Island did not kneel. She did not tremble. She only met his eyes and said, "You cannot cage the heart." Khan's face darkened. "Then I will break the cage," he whispered. He ordered Otger to place spies around both Island and Erez. Spies who would watch and report every moment, every breath, every emotion. But the Khan wanted more. He wanted them to feel each other's suffering. Night 1. Erez awoke to tapping. Gentle, slow, repeating. Tap, tap, tap. He turned. A human hand was sticking out of the wall, pale, trembling, tapping with its nails. Not attached to a body. Just a hand. It pointed toward him, then crawled back into the wall. Erez shivered. Karma's voice echoed. "The tortured do not rest here. They want company." Night 2. Island was forced to watch through a thin slitted window as Erez screamed through nightmares that weren't his own. Khan stood beside her, arms folded. "Horror binds stronger than love," he said. "By the time I finish, both of you will beg to forget each other." Every night, Erez endured new horrors. Walls whispering his name. Voices mimicking Island's cries. Shadow figures standing over him as he slept. Chains tightening on their own. But the worst came on the 7th night. He saw Island, or something shaped like her. She stood in the corner of his cell, hair covering her face, unmoving. "Island," he whispered. The figure twitched, once, then began crawling toward him in jerks, bones cracking, head bending unnaturally. Erez pressed himself against the wall, heart hammering. When the creature lifted its face, it had Island's eyes, but the mouth of something else. Something that fed on fear. Erez screamed until darkness swallowed him. When he awoke, the creature was gone. But her footprints remained. Island, meanwhile, resisted every psychological attack from Khan. He offered freedom in exchange for betrayal. She refused. He barred her from sunlight. She endured. He showed her visions, illusions created by shamans, of Erez dead, begging, breaking. She looked him straight in the eye and said, "As long as he breathes, so do I." The Khan was enraged. And when a tyrant's pride bleeds, his cruelty deepens. Changes Khan summoned all his shamans, his executioners, his spies, his torturers. "Prepare the ritual," he said. "A punishment worthy of forbidden love." Erez was dragged from his cell. Island was chained beside him. They were forced to kneel before a giant wooden pillar carved with screaming faces. The Pillar of Echoes, an artifact said to capture the last breath of the dying. Khan stepped between the lovers. "Look at each other," he ordered. With open eyes, with open fear. Erez tried to stand, but a spear pressed to his back forced him down. Island's tears fell silently. Khan raised his hand, and the world held its breath. Just as Khan was about to command their execution, a sudden cold wind swept the ground. Torches extinguished. The sky turned black. The prison tower shook violently. Something ancient awakened. Something that had been feeding on agony for years. The ghosts of the tortured rose, hundreds of them, pouring from walls and floors and the Pillar of Echoes like smoke turning solid. They rushed toward the execution ground. Soldiers screamed. Shamans fled. Horses reared. Changes Khan drew his sword, but even he stepped back. The spirits surrounded Erez and Island. Not to kill them, but to protect them. Because love had survived where fear tried to break. The spirits turned toward Khan with hollow eyes, and the ground beneath him cracked open like a hungry mouse. The Khan stumbled, dropping his sword as ghostly hands pulled at his armor, dragging him toward the darkness below. His last words echoed with terror. No love can destroy a Khan. But the spirits pulled him deeper, and deeper, until he was gone, Silence fell. Erez collapsed into Island's arms. The spirits faded, returning to their prison walls, finally at rest. Erez and Island escaped with the dawn, riding far away from the cursed fortress, crossing mountains and rivers until the world no longer spoke the name Changes Khan. They lived the rest of their lives in a hidden valley, where winter was gentle and hearts were free. But sometimes, at night, when the wind blew just right, they heard faint whispers from far away. Love survived where empires fell. And thus, the legend of the prison of stolen Herts became a tale told across centuries, a story of forbidden love, a tyrant's cruelty, and the horror that consumed an empire. Erez and Island believed they had escaped. The valley where they settled was quiet, lush fields, soft winds, shimmering lakes untouched by war. They built a small hut. They planted trees. They laughed again. For the first time, their nights were free of chains and shadows. But peace always has a price, and some ghosts do not remain buried. One morning, Island stepped outside their hut and froze. There were footprints in the dirt. Large, heavy, made by boots that soldiers once wore. They formed a circle around the hut, as if someone had walked around them all night. Erez followed the tracks into the woods. They ended at a tall cedar tree and disappeared as if the person had simply vanished. The bark of the tree was carved with a single symbol, the mark of Changes Khan. Erez ran back to Island. Island, someone has followed us. But Island looked pale, trembling. Erez, she whispered, I saw him last night. Who? She swallowed hard. Otgar, the Khan's spy. The man who once hunted them. The man they thought died with the Khan's fall. Erez did not sleep that night. Near midnight, the wind shifted. The hut's door shook. Erez grabbed his blade. But Island stopped him. Erez, listen. Tap, tap, tap. The same sound Erez once heard in the prison. Erez pushed the door open. The valley was empty. But across the field, standing perfectly still, was a figure wearing a black hood and carrying a curved dagger. Otgar, alive, breathing, watching. Erez stepped forward. Otgar, you want revenge? Face me. The figure didn't move, not even to breathe. Erez took another step. Island grabbed his arm. Erez, look again. Otgar's shape flickered, like a candle losing its flame, then vanished. The field was empty. Island whispered, that wasn't a man. It was a memory. The next day, Island found a wrapped object outside their hut. Inside lay Changes Khan's sword, shattered into 3 pieces. Erez touched the hilt and felt something icy crawl into his bones. Written in dried blood on the cloth, the Khan is not finished with you. Island recoiled. The spirits saved us. Why would they send this? Erez shook his head. The spirits freed themselves, not Changes Khan. Island stared at him, terrified. You think the Khan survived? Erez didn't answer. The silence was loud enough. That night they sought help from Saran, a wandering healer who lived near the valley's edge, an old woman with ash-white hair and eyes like storm clouds. She listened quietly as Erez told her everything. When he finished, Saran exhaled shakily. You escaped his hands, she said, but not his shadow. Island frowned. Explain. Saran lifted one of the broken sword pieces. This blade was forged by ancient shamans. The moment Changes Khan died, his soul did not pass on. Erez clenched his fists. Where is it now? Saran's voice lowered to a trembling whisper. Trapped between worlds, in rage. Neither dead nor alive. Bound to anything he touched in his final moments. Island's eyes widened. Erez, we touched the pillar. The spirits surrounded us. They protected us. Saran nodded slowly. And now the Khan's spirit is searching for what he lost that night. Araz's jaw tightened. Us. Saran's voice cracked. He wants to finish the execution. He never did. They hurried back to the hut. The moon was full and silver. Araz stopped halfway down the path. Island, do you hear that? Island listened. A chorus of whispers moved through the trees. Soft at first, then growing louder. Whispers turning into voices. Voices turning into screams. The trees twisted unnaturally. Shadows crawled across the ground. Island covered her ears, shaking. Araz, he's coming. The wind exploded. The sky darkened. And from the shadows, a figure emerged. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a torn fur cloak. His face hidden behind a cracked iron mask. But the eyes, burning, furious, inhuman, were unmistakable. Changes Khan. Not alive. Not dead. Something in between. The Spirit Khan raised his hand. Chains of black smoke erupted from the ground, wrapping around Araz's arms and legs. Island screamed and ran toward him, but a wall of shadows pushed her back. Khan's voice was deep, echoing like thunder. You stole what was mine. Araz struggled, veins burning under the chains. You killed armies for greed. You destroyed lands, but you could not destroy our love. The spirit tilted his head, amused. Love. His voice distorted, cracking. You think love can defy an empire? Araz spat blood. It already did. Khan raised his hand again. The chains tightened. Araz gasped, choking. Island pounded against the wall of darkness. Take me, not Him. Khan's eyes flared. I will take both. He thrust his hand forward. Araz's body shook violently. The chains began dragging him toward the ground, toward the same abyss that swallowed the Khan. Island screamed. Araz. Suddenly, a blast of cold wind erupted. The ground split open. And from the cracks, the spirits of the tortured rose again. The same spirits who saved them before. Their hollow eyes glowed. Their bodies swirled like smoke in human form. They moved between Araz and the Khan, shielding him. Khan roared, You do not command me. But the spirits whispered as one. We do not serve you, we serve balance. Island ran to Araz, pulling him free from the black chains. The spirits surrounded Khan. Khan thrashed violently, swinging spectral blades, tearing through half the spirits. But they kept rising. More and more. An entire army of the dead he once tortured. They pressed him down, forcing him into the earth once more. His final roar shook the valley. I will return. Then the ground sealed. Silence. The night wind blew gently again. The spirits turned to Araz and Island. One spirit, the same one that once mimicked Island's voice, bowed its head. This is not over. Then they vanished, leaving the lovers trembling in the moonlight. Back inside the hut, Araz sat beside Island, holding her shaking hands. Araz, she whispered, voice barely a breath. He won't stop. No, Araz said. His voice was calm. But we will not run again. Island looked at him. What do we do now? Araz lifted the broken sword of Changes Khan. The spirit saved us twice. Now we must end him. Island's eyes slowly hardened with resolve. Then we go back to where it all began, she whispered. Araz nodded. To the prison of stolen hearts. The camera of fate pulled away. Two silhouettes, hand in hand, walking into darkness, toward a haunted fortress, and a vengeful spirit waiting to rise again. The night was colder than usual. The wind that flowed across the stone walls of Changes Khan's fortress felt as if it carried whispers of the past and warnings of the future. Armin sat in his narrow cell, staring at the single torch burning in the hallway. Each flicker of flame reminded him of Liana, her voice, her trembling hands, the tears he had felt on her cheeks during their last secret meeting. For the first time, fear had stepped inside his heart. Not fear for himself, but fear for her. Because he now understood one thing. Chengiz Khan was no longer suspicious, he was certain. And when Chengiz Khan became certain, someone always died. The spy in the SHADOWS. For days, Armin had felt an unseen pair of eyes following him. The spy, Altaf, moved like a ghost, never speaking, never blinking for too long. He was always near the walls, behind the pillars, between groups of soldiers. Armin had once seen his reflection in Altaf's eyes. A prisoner pretending to be strong, but breaking from the inside. Altaf's duty was simple. Watch them, watch everything, report everything. And Armin knew that every breath he took was being counted. The secret message. On the third night, something unexpected happened. A folded piece of cloth was slipped inside his cell through the iron bars. Armin's heart skipped. He grabbed it instantly, hands shaking, eyes burning with hope. Liana's handwriting. Her message was short but powerful. Meet me in the old prayer hall at midnight. We don't have many nights left. I need to see you. Tonight. Liana. Armin crushed the cloth in his fist. A part of him wanted to run. A part of him wanted to scream her name. But the strongest part of him whispered, if she is risking her life, I must go. Midnight meeting. The old prayer hall had not been used in years. Dust covered the floor, and moonlight slipped through broken wooden panels like silver blades. Armin stepped inside cautiously. Liana, he whispered. A soft sob answered him. She stepped from behind a pillar, eyes red, hands trembling. When she saw him, she broke, running into his arms with a pain that stabbed through both of them. Armin, he knows, she said, her voice shaking. He knows everything. Armin closed his eyes, holding her close. He had felt fear before, but not like this. And he's planning something, she whispered, something dark. Armin tried to speak, tried to comfort her, but before he could. A quiet clicking sound echoed from the corner of the hall. Both turned sharply. A shadow moved. Someone was there, watching, breathing with them. The torch outside flickered once, and the face appeared. Altaf, the spy. The moment that broke them. Altaf stepped forward slowly, expression blank. Liana gasped. Armin's fists tightened. But Altaf did not shout. He did not call the guards. Instead, he stared at them with a strange sadness. And then he spoke for the first time in days. He already knows. Tonight is not the night you die, but the night he begins your punishment. Liana's knees weakened. Armin held her. What do you mean? Armin demanded. Altaf lowered his eyes as if ashamed. He will not kill you yet, he whispered. He wants to break your souls first. Silence fell like ice. Armin felt Liana's fear grip his arm. Altaf continued. Tomorrow at sunrise, Chengiz Khan will call you both to the main courtyard. He will announce something. Something neither of you can escape. Armin felt his chest tighten. Fear, anger, love, desperation. All colliding at once. What is he planning? Liana cried. Altaf's answer was barely louder than a breath. A punishment worse than death. The decision. The prayer hall felt smaller now, the air colder. Their hearts heavier. Armin looked at Liana, the woman who should have lived in silk and sunlight, not fear and darkness. He cupped her face gently. Whatever happens, he said, voice breaking, I will not let him destroy you. Her tears fell onto his hands. And I will not leave you, she whispered. Altaf, standing at the doorway like a silent omen, gave them one final warning. Escape if you can. Tonight is the last night before everything changes. Then he vanished, leaving them drowning in the truth. By sunrise, their fate would be written. And Chengiz Khan held the pen. The night had grown heavier than usual. A fog crept along the stone corridors of Chengiz Khan's fortress, thick and cold, as if the walls themselves were breathing. Armin and Liana had been held apart since the spy Altaf's warning. Each moment without touch, without a whisper, was a punishment more brutal than any chain. Armin sat on the cold floor of his chamber, knees pressed to his chest. He could still feel her warmth, her trembling hands in his, the soft breath that once escaped her lips against his ear. The memory was sweet and cruel all at once. He closed his eyes, fighting tears that he refused to shed. He needed to be strong, but his heart ached with a pain that made the walls of the fortress seem alive, pressing in on him. Liana, in the adjacent chamber, pressed her palms against the iron bars of her cell. Her tears fell silently onto the cold stone. She whispered his name like a prayer, like a plea to the wind. "Armin, come to me, I need you." Her voice trembled but held a strength she didn't feel. The thought of Chengiz Khan's eyes, cold and merciless, made her knees weak. Every sound in the hallway, a creak, a whisper, a shuffle of boots, felt like the herald of death. The hour of punishment. Before dawn, the fortress came alive. Torches flared along the outer walls, casting long, monstrous shadows that danced across the stone like spirits of the fallen. A single horn sounded, low and bitter, reverberating across the courtyard. The prisoners were gathered, their breaths misting in the chill air, faces pale with fear. Chengiz Khan stepped forward, his presence like a storm breaking over a mountain. His eyes, black and sharp, swept across the crowd, finally landing on Armin and Liana. A cruel smile tugged at his lips. "You have dared to love where love was forbidden," he said, voice echoing like iron. "You have stolen what was mine by right, and yet I do not kill you. That would be too simple. No, you will suffer differently." Liana's hand trembled on the bars of her cell. Armin's jaw tightened. They shared a look soft, fleeting, desperate. A silent promise. No matter what came, they would survive together, even if the fortress itself tried to tear them apart. The horrible truth. Altaf appeared in the shadows, silent as death. His face showed something different this time, hesitation. "The Khan, he will not kill you yet," he whispered to Armin. "He wants your hearts broken first. One will watch, the other will endure. Each night a choice will be made, and each choice will leave a scar no one can see." Armin's heart sank. The cruelty was unimaginable. To see Liana suffer while he could only watch, and the next night the roles reversed, was a torment beyond death. He swallowed hard, his eyes burning with unshed tears. Liana, sensing his despair, pressed her hand against her chest, speaking softly into the cold air of her cell. "Armin, we will survive. I will not let him take you from me, and I will not let him take me from you. Our love, it is stronger than his darkness." Armin's lips quivered. "Liana, I promise, I will not fail you. No matter what he does, I will find a way to keep us together." The first night of terror. At night, Chengiz Khan summoned them to the courtyard. The moon shone like silver on his cruel features. Soldiers lined the edges, torches casting long, moving shadows. The fortress walls seemed to close in. Armin and Liana were forced to stand apart, chained to separate pillars. The cold metal bit into their wrists and ankles, but it was nothing compared to the dread in their hearts. Khan's voice cut through the still night. "Tonight, you will learn the meaning of suffering beyond flesh. You will feel fear that even death cannot erase." From the shadows, torches illuminated strange, twisted shapes moving between the pillars, shadows that seemed alive, whispering their deepest fears back to them. Liana shivered. She pressed her eyes closed and whispered his name. Armin felt her voice pierce his chest. He wanted to run, to throw himself into her arms, but the chains held him fast. He shouted her name instead, and she whispered back, soft but steady. I am here with you, always." The whisper of love and fear. Hours passed like eternity. Every scream, every shadow, every whisper in the wind reminded them that they were at the mercy of a man who ruled both the fortress and their hearts. Yet through it all, their connection grew stronger. Each glance, each soft word carried the weight of promises and devotion, stronger than chains, stronger than fear. In the silence between the horrors, Armin whispered into the dark, "I love you, Liana. Nothing can change that." Her voice came like a soft flame. "And I love you, Armin. Even if the world burns around us, even if he thinks he can break us, our hearts belong to each other." The shadows shifted. The fortress seemed to pulse with anger. But in that moment, love became their shield, their secret rebellion, their defiance against the cruelty surrounding them. The ending of the night. When dawn finally crept over the fortress, Armin and Liana were still chained, still in pain, still haunted, but unbroken. Chengiz Khan watched, fury hidden behind his calm mask. "You have survived the first night," he said softly. "But survival is only the beginning. Each night will be worse. Each day, the choice will bring more suffering." Armin and Liana exchanged one final glance before being dragged apart. Their hands brushed for a fleeting second, soft, warm, alive, and in that touch, they found the courage to face the horrors still to come. The fortress swallowed them, the shadows whispered, and the first day of punishment ended. But their hearts remained united, beating together against the darkness of Chengiz Khan's cruelty. The fortress had never been so silent. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath as the first light of dawn crept along the stone walls. But for Armin and Liana, silence meant nothing. Every second stretched into an eternity, every heartbeat a drum of terror. They had been dragged to separate chambers after the courtyard, still chained, still unable to touch. The cold metal bit into their wrists and ankles, but that was nothing compared to the ache of absence. Every whisper, every shadow felt alive, feeding on their fear. Liana pressed her forehead against the wall, whispering into the darkness. "Armin, I can feel you. Don't let him take your heart from me." Armin, in his cell, closed his eyes and imagined her there beside him. "I will not let him," he whispered back, voice breaking. "Even if it costs me everything, I will protect you." The horrible punishment. When night fell, the torches flared to life again. Chengiz Khan stood at the center of the courtyard, surrounded by soldiers. His eyes were sharp, cold, and full of a cruel anticipation that made even the bravest tremble. "Tonight," he said, voice echoing like a storm, "you will feel the true cost of love that dares defy me." Armin and Liana were brought forward, forced onto separate platforms, still chained. Shadows flickered across the walls, strange shapes that whispered their deepest fears back to them. "You will watch," Chengiz Khan continued, "as the one you love suffers, and you will feel it as if it were yourself." Armin's chest tightened. His eyes met Liana across the courtyard. She gave him a small, trembling smile, a silent promise. They would endure this together, even if the world tried to crush them. The whispers of fear. The Khan's men brought forward strange instruments, twisted and unfamiliar. The shadows seemed to grow larger, crawling along the walls, filling the air with an almost sentient malice. Liana shivered but held her head high. She whispered, barely audible, "Armin, hold my heart in yours. I will hold yours in mine. Nothing can break us." Armin clenched his fists, the chains cutting into his wrists, but he could feel her words as if they were a shield around him. "I will," he whispered back. "Forever." Chengiz Khan watched them, a cruel smile on his lips. "Your suffering begins now," he said. And then the shadows came alive. Dark forms slithered along the ground, reaching for Liana. A cold, invisible force lifted her slightly into the air, making her gasp. Every touch of it felt like ice through her bones. Armin screamed, "Liana!" The chains bit harder as soldiers held him back. He could not reach her. The cruel pleasure in Chengiz Khan's eyes was unbearable. The secret strength of love. Liana felt her fear rising, almost swallowing her. And then she remembered Armin, his whispered promises, his steady heart, his courage. She closed her eyes, imagining his hands holding hers, his voice guiding her through the dark. And something changed. The shadows recoiled. The cold that bit her bones softened. A small warmth, faint but strong, radiated from her chest. A force she had never known filled her. Her chains rattled, and for a brief moment, the air around her seemed alive with light. Armin saw it too. Across the courtyard, he felt her strength like a hand in his own heart. It gave him courage he had thought lost. "Liana," he whispered, voice trembling. "Hold on, I am here, always." She smiled through tears. "Always," she whispered back. The break in darkness. Chengiz Khan's fury was visible now. He had never expected their bond to resist his shadows. The shadows hissed and twisted, but Liana's courage spread like fire through the courtyard. Armin strained against his chains, feeling her strength reach him, warming his blood. For a moment, the Khan's control faltered. And then the first crack appeared, literally. The stone floor beneath one of the Khan's shadow creatures cracked. Dust filled the air. The soldiers glanced around, confused. Liana lifted her head, tears and sweat streaking her face, and whispered louder now. "We are not yours to break." Armin's heart swelled with love and pride. He roared, a sound that carried across the courtyard. "Never." The shadows faltered again. The cruel grin on Chengiz Khan's face wavered. For the first time, doubt flickered in his eyes. The ending of Night 1. Dawn began to creep over the fortress. The first night of torment had ended, not because Chengiz Khan stopped, but because love, raw and unyielding, had shown its power. Armin and Liana were still chained, still in the Khan's hands, but they were no longer afraid. Not fully. Every whispered promise, every glance, every heartbeat shared in the dark had made them stronger. And even in the face of terror, even in the face of punishment, they knew one truth. Nothing in the world, not even Chengiz Khan, could sever the bond of their hearts. The fortress fell silent once more, but Armin and Liana would not sleep. Their love was a flame now, a secret, unbreakable, burning in the shadows of the Khan's cruelty. And they both knew. The fortress had never felt so alive with terror. The stone walls, cold and unyielding, seemed to pulse with a hidden life, as though every brick, every shadow had absorbed the cries and secrets of centuries past. Armin and Liana, still chained and bruised from previous nights of torment, were led through corridors that seemed endless. Each step echoed like a drumbeat of doom, and the chill in the air cut to the bone, as if the fortress itself wanted to warn them of what was to come. The torches along the hallways flickered unnaturally. Shadows stretched and twisted against the walls, taking forms that resembled monstrous creatures. At times, they seemed to breathe, to whisper, as if the fortress itself knew their fears and intended to exploit them. Armin's heart pounded in his chest. He knew Liana was nearby, separated by mere steps, but still unreachable. That separation was a cruelty more painful than the chains that bound him. "Stay calm," he whispered to himself, though his own voice sounded hollow. "Think, survive, protect her." He remembered Altaf's warning from the previous night. The spy had spoken of punishments that were worse than death, and Armin understood now that this was exactly what the Khan intended. Not merely to harm the body, but to torment the soul, to make two hearts shiver under a darkness no one had imagined. And yet, he also remembered Liana's words, her whisper that had burned into him like fire. Even if the world burns around us, even if he thinks he can break us, our hearts belong to each other. The descent into the abyss. They were led deeper into the fortress than ever before. The corridors narrowed, the air grew colder, and the shadows grew darker. It was as if the further they descended, the more the fortress swallowed all warmth, all hope. Occasionally, Armin caught glimpses of faces carved into the walls, some screaming, some silent, all horrifying in their stillness. These were not merely decorations, they were warnings. The Khan had made sure that every prisoner who had dared defy him became part of the fortress itself. Liana's soft whimpers reached him through the distance. He wanted to reach her, to grab her hand, but the chains tore painfully against his wrists. He swallowed the urge to cry out, fearing it would draw attention. Instead, he focused on her voice, on the knowledge that she was as determined as he was, that her love was as fierce as the chains were cruel. "Armin," she whispered, her voice breaking but steady, "I can feel you. Do not let them break your heart." "I won't," he whispered back, his lips moving silently. "I will not let them ever. We survive together or we do not survive at all." The corridors opened into a massive chamber, dimly lit by torches that cast eerie flickers across the stone. In the center was a pit so deep that even the torchlight could not reach the bottom. Shadows rose from it, slithering along the walls, curling and twisting as if alive. Every prisoner who had entered before had left with their soul marked by terror, their screams absorbed into the shadows. Chengiz Khan emerged from the darkness, his armor gleaming like black glass. The shadows seemed to gather around him as if he were their master. His eyes, dark as midnight, scanned Armin and Liana with a calculated cruelty. A smile tugged at his lips, a smile that promised pain, despair, and despair alone. "You have survived the first night," he said, voice cutting through the chamber like a blade. "You have endured, but endurance is meaningless without suffering. Tonight, you will confront the depths of your own hearts. You will see your fears, your regrets, your weakness, and you will feel them multiplied, knowing that each pain your beloved endures, you feel it as well." Armin felt the blood drain from his face. His hands ached from the chains, but even worse was the knowledge that Liana would suffer before him, and he would feel every second of it. Liana's lips quivered, and she forced herself to stand tall, meeting the Khan's gaze with defiance, though her heart raced with fear. The SHADOWS awaken. With a slow gesture from Chengiz Khan, the shadows in the chamber began to move. They lifted from the pit, and the walls, thick and black, taking forms both grotesque and familiar. Armin's eyes widened in terror. The shadows twisted into visions of his worst fears, seeing Liana torn from his arms, witnessing her suffer at the hands of the Khan, feeling helpless as her pain echoed inside him. Liana, on the other platform, faced the same terror. The shadows morphed into visions of Armin being broken, screaming, chained, and unable to protect her. She pressed her eyes closed and tried to summon the strength she had drawn from him countless times before. Their love, fragile but unyielding, was now the only shield against the darkness surrounding them. Armin whispered her name, his voice trembling. "Liana, I am here. Hear me, feel me." Her voice, soft but unwavering, returned to him. "Always, Armin, always." The shadows hissed and recoiled, unable to comprehend the force that bound them together. Chengiz Khan's fury was visible. He had controlled countless prisoners, yet this bond of love resisted him, shattered his control over the chamber. He gritted his teeth. "Impossible," he hissed. "No mortal love can withstand the power of the Khan." The bond of HERTS. Armin closed his eyes and focused on Liana. He remembered every whispered promise, every fleeting touch in the darkness, every heartbeat that had kept him alive in the previous nights. With all his will, he projected that strength outward. The chains cut into his wrists, but he did not falter. Liana did the same. She reached into her own fear and pain, pulling forth every ounce of courage and love she had left. Together, though separated by stone and shadow, their hearts became one. The darkness faltered, twisting and writhing, then dissipated in the torchlight. Chengiz Khan stared in disbelief. For the first time, he hesitated, realizing that the power of true love, raw, unyielding, unbreakable, was something even he could not control. Armin shouted across the chamber, "We are not yours to break." Liana's voice joined his, trembling but defiant. "Never." The chamber fell silent, the shadows scattered, and even the torches flickered with a strange warmth, as if acknowledging the victory of the hearts that refused to yield. The fortress seemed to exhale in silence. The darkness that had gripped Armin and Liana's hearts now lay shattered, but the chains around their wrists were still sharp reminders of their captivity. The corridors ahead were long, twisting, and alive with unseen eyes. Altaf appeared silently, a shadow among shadows, and nodded toward a narrow passage partially hidden behind a collapsed wall. "This way," he whispered. "The fortress watches everything, yet there are places even its master cannot fully control. You must move quickly. Once you are free from this section, there will be only one chance to leave." Armin looked at Liana. Her face was pale but determined, eyes shining with a light that not even the Khan's darkness could dim. They nodded to each other. No words were needed. Their hearts understood what must be done. The chains clinked softly as they followed Altaf. Every step was a test of patience and courage. At any moment, a soldier could appear, or the Khan could emerge from the shadows. Each corridor seemed longer than the last, and whispers from the walls filled the air, echoing fears from generations of prisoners who had walked here before. The heart of terror. Suddenly, the passage opened into a wide chamber. In the center was a pit, deeper than the last, with shadows rising from it like living smoke. Armin froze. Liana's hand gripped his arm. "It's another trap," she whispered. "We have to move carefully." Altaf moved first, stepping lightly along the edge of the pit, pointing out safe stones to step on. "The shadows here obey the Khan," he said. "They will attempt to manipulate your fear to draw it out and crush it. Keep your heart steady. Together, you are stronger than anything in this fortress." Armin swallowed hard. He could feel his own fear, sharp and cold. But he could feel Liana's courage too, wrapping around him like armor. He tightened his grip on her hand, letting her strength flow into him. They stepped carefully, stones shifting under their weight. Shadows rose, writhing and reaching for them. Faces appeared in the smoke, twisted images of their worst memories. Armin saw himself failing Liana, powerless to protect her. Liana saw him captured, broken, dying. Both flinched, but neither faltered. Together, they advanced, whispering each other's names as if a single word could keep the shadows at bay. ALTF's choice. Halfway across, Altaf stopped. His eyes were fixed on the pit, but his expression was troubled. "The Khan suspects me," he muttered. "He may be aware that I am helping you. Once you reach the outer walls, I may not be able to follow." Armin looked at him sharply. "Then why help us at all?" Altaf's gaze softened briefly. "Because I have seen what love can do," he said quietly. "Even the Khan cannot break it, and I cannot watch two hearts destroyed when I have the means to guide them." The confession hung in the air like smoke. Liana squeezed Armin's hand. "We owe him our lives," she whispered. Altaf shook his head. "You owe no one, only yourselves. Move now while the shadows are confused by the strength of your bond." The chase, BGNS. As they reached the far side of the chamber, the shadows shrieked and twisted violently. The Khan's voice echoed through the corridors like rolling thunder. "Do not think you can escape me. Love cannot defy the Khan forever." The walls trembled. Stones fell. Dust filled the air. Soldiers poured into the chamber, torches held high, their footsteps booming. Armin tightened his grip on Liana. "Run!" he shouted, his voice raw but determined. They dashed through the corridors, Altaf leading the way. Each turn seemed more perilous than the last. The fortress seemed alive, attempting to trap them in its maze of fear. But their hearts guided them. Each glance, each shared breath was a reminder that they were not alone, that together they could face any horror. The final trap. They emerged into a cavern beneath the fortress. The walls were slick, the ceiling low, and the path ahead was narrow. A river of dark water flowed through the cavern, reflecting the faint torchlight. Altaf gestured to a small boat hidden at the edge. "This is your only way out," he said. "Once you cross the river, the fortress will be behind you. But beware, he has one final test waiting above." Armin and Liana stepped into the boat. The chains still bound them, but their hands were free to clasp each other. As Altaf pushed the boat into the river, they could hear the echoes of soldiers above, the distant roar of the Khan. The water swirled around them, cold and alive, carrying whispers of the fortress and the thousands of secrets it held. Liana rested her head against Armin's shoulder. "We made it this far," she whispered. "No matter what comes next, we are together." Armin kissed her forehead. "Together, always." The final confrontation. As the boat neared the river's exit, the fortress above began to crumble. Rocks fell, and the shadows shrieked, twisting violently. And then, from the darkness, Chengiz Khan himself appeared at the edge of the cliff overlooking the river. His eyes blazed with fury and disbelief. "You dare escape me," he bellowed. "Do you think love can defy the Khan?" Armin stood, pulling Liana with him. "It already has," he shouted. "Your shadows, your chains, your cruelty, they cannot control hearts that refuse to break." The Khan raised his hands, and the shadows surged toward them one last time. But Armin and Liana, united, stepped forward into the river, calling out their love, their defiance, their courage. The force of their bond met the shadows and shattered them, sending black tendrils thrashing into the air, then vanishing like smoke. Chengiz Khan roared in rage. The cliff trembled. But Armin and Lyanna, holding hands, moved forward, leaving the fortress behind, finally free. The dawn of freedom. The river carried them downstream, away from the fortress, away from the Khan's power. The first rays of sunlight touched their faces, warm and golden, and for the first time in many nights, they could breathe without fear. They collapsed on the riverbank, holding each other, exhausted, trembling, alive. Armin brushed the hair from Lyanna's face. "We survived," he whispered. Lyanna smiled weakly. "We survived, and we are together. Nothing can take this from us." Altaf appeared once more, watching from the shadows. "Go," he said. "Live, love, remember what you've endured here, and no, not every shadow can be conquered, but some hearts cannot be broken." As they disappeared into the morning mist, the fortress of Chengiz Khan loomed in the distance, silent, dark, and full of secrets. And the world beyond awaited them, a world of sunlight, life, and love. The ending. Armin and Lyanna walked into the valley together, hand in hand, hearts beating in unison, carrying the scars of terror, but also the light of survival and unbreakable love. Behind them, the fortress waited, dark and silent, holding countless secrets. Altaf remained hidden in the shadows, the only witness to the events that had unfolded. And as the sun rose, casting light across the valley and the world beyond, the truth became clear. Love had survived what power and cruelty could not. Many black secrets back in famous great peoples,